They have been loyal to the system, and of course, its head, the supreme leader himself. I think that will continue to be the case moving forward. Now, of course, Israelis are betting on whether or not they can try to, push the Iranians towards more sort of chaotic situation. But I think the process is in motion now, and I think the IRGC will be loyal to the process based on the constitution. Now, of course, the institutions are working, but also, as I think one point is very important to consider the personality, who is to be elected. A middle ground candidate who is elected, I think, have the potential to rally not only the support of the political factors from across the spectrum, but also the IRGC will see to his benefit, but also to the system's benefit, to rally behind such a candidate. So I think a division within the IRGC is really misplaced when reading carefully what the IRGC is about and what has it been standing for.
Hassan Ahmadi and Ali Hashim, we appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Well, Iran has carried out strikes across the Gulf region targeting U.S. military bases. A large plume of smoke was seen in the industrial area of Qatar's capital, Doha. Other attacks have reached Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE, Jordan, Oman and Saudi Arabia. Some of them hit civilian areas. The UAE says it's intercepted more than 300 missiles and drones. We're going to go live to Zain Basravi, who's in Doha. Talk to us about the strikes that we've been seeing over the last few hours, Zain.
Well, over the course of 24 hours, we've seen dozens of strikes on multiple GCC cities. This morning at 7:30 local time here in Doha, the day began with loud explosions and several rounds of those bangs heard from the interception of Iranian missiles and drones over the course of the day. And the worry now is for people that as these carry on, that the debris falling will continue to damage those populated areas over which these interceptions are happening. We saw a large plume of smoke from a fire that was sparked at the industrial area between the city and Al Udeid Air Base, where U.S. Headquarters of CENTCOM are. Falling debris sparked a fire at what police told us when we were there at the scene was a food store, but there are manufacturing facilities there, auto shops, a very heavy, densely populated industrial area. And that's where that fire was. Now, the worry for regional leaders is that the longer this carries on, that there will be a spillover of this conflict. But there's also a concern that there is some misinformation that may begin to spread as this chaos is so widespread, as the retaliation of Iran's anger that is being seen playing out on targets and U.S. assets across the region is so widespread. We did put out a report earlier quoting the British Defense Secretary John Healey saying that there had been missiles fired towards Cyprus. Now, the Cypriot government has come out on social media saying that that is not the case. They put out a statement saying, in relation to the statements and media reports referring to the launch of missiles towards the direction of Cyprus, it is clarified that this is not the case, and there's no indication whatsoever that any threat to the country has occurred. The competent authorities are closely monitoring the situation on a continuous basis. So we do have to correct that report there. The incident also sparked a conversation, a call between the president of Cyprus and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer calling regarding the ongoing regional developments, saying that he confirmed clearly that unequivocally that Cyprus was not a target, and they're continuing to monitor developments closely. So while there is a risk of a spillover, there's also a risk of misinformation with so much chaos happening at the same time.
Zain, stay with me for a second because I want to talk about Oman. Oman's Maritime Security Centre says an oil tanker has been attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, injuring 4 crew. All 20 people on board were evacuated. Meanwhile, in another incident reported north of the capital, Muscat, an unknown projectile is said to have struck a vessel. There have also been Iranian drone strikes on Oman, which had been mediating indirect talks between Tehran and Washington. 2 drones hit Oman's commercial port of Duqm. One of them struck a mobile home for workers, injuring 1 person. And Qatar's foreign ministry has condemned the attack on Oman, saying in a statement, the state of Qatar expresses its strong condemnation of the Iranian attacks that targeted the commercial Duqm port in the sisterly Sultanate of Oman and an oil tanker off its coast, considering them a violation of the Sultanate's sovereignty, an unacceptable escalation and a cowardly targeting of a country playing an active role in mediation efforts. So, Zain, Qatar denouncing the attack very strongly there. What can we expect going forward in the region?
Well, the GCC countries are certainly closing ranks. The foreign ministers of those countries had a video conference call today as well to discuss de-escalation, to discuss how to bring stability back, and crucially to discuss the very important commercial and transport waterways, not just the Strait of Hormuz, but in the Arabian Sea and in the Gulf. Now, Iran has said in the past that if it is attacked, it will choke the Strait of Hormuz. That is what we are seeing and beginning to do now. It is also said that despite the fact that these countries in the GCC, that its neighboring countries are its close neighbors, are its partners in the region, what it continues to say is that as long as you host the United States assets, military bases, cooperate militarily with the United States, that they will consider those assets, those bases, those locations as sovereign U.S. targets that are fair game if Iran is attacked. And that is what we've been seeing. Oman was spared the beginning of this retaliation by Iran on day one yesterday. But Oman has in the past cooperated with the United States. It does have cooperation agreements for the U.S. military to use its bases and airports and airstrips. So what we are seeing now is that Iran is beginning to target Oman as well. It was the only country in the GCC yesterday that hadn't been struck on day one of Iran's retaliation after it was attacked. But we are seeing Oman being brought into the fray now as well.
Zain, thank you very much indeed. That's Zain Basrawi talking to us there from Doha. Well, a reminder of the Iranian missile strikes that have killed at least 9 people in the central Israeli city of Beit Shemesh. At least 20 others have been injured. Israel's military says it's investigating why its air defense system failed to intercept the missiles. People also heard explosions across Tel Aviv, with sirens sounding in major urban areas. The strikes reportedly targeted Israel's army headquarters and a weapons manufacturing complex. Some Israelis welcomed the killing of Iran's supreme leader. Others are concerned about what comes next.
The situation is the best that can be for the Middle East and all the world, all the free world, because now we are in the path to a different regime in Iran. I believe it strongly, and afterwards there will be peace in the Middle East.
First of all, it's not the only one that threatened Israel for the last 30, 40, 50 years. Second of all, I understand he has a son that is worse than him. And if the son will go, someone else will come.
I think this war was no needed. It's only for political things. Only for Bibi to stay on the government. That's what I think. That we are toys in his game. So I don't, Khamenei, it will be another one instead of him. It's not solve the problem.
Dan Perry is an Israeli political analyst and the former chief editor of the Associated Press in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. He's joining us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. We were just playing out.
Welcome home to Dyken Park.
And that ball is gone! Aaron Smith. Christian Walker Winston and the Astros win it in a walk-off. Let's go Astros! Yeah!
How people in Israel are viewing these attacks on Iran, but also the potential of Iran's response.
As we've discussed many times, Israel is a country that's divided on most political issues, and the government of Netanyahu is not particularly popular. And Iran successes aside, he would probably lose elections had they been held last week. So, of course, you're going to hear a lot of cynicism about Netanyahu, and many people in Israel believe that he's certainly capable of making, decisions about when to start a war based on political expedience. That's a given. Israel's full of cynicism, not unwarranted, about Netanyahu. That said, one or two vox pops is never going to capture the big picture. And the big picture in Israel is that they'd be delighted for the Islamic Republic regime to fall. They really do believe the Iranian people are their friends. I realize this may sound naive or fantastical, but that feeling is strong in Israel because they remember the era under the Shah when the two countries were good friends, and there are contacts below the radar between Israelis and Iranians all the time, and Israeli singers in Persian, have fans in Iran, and on and on. So hard as it may be for some viewers to believe, the feeling is strong in Israel that they're doing Iranians a favor. Of course, the main issue is that they want to rid Israel of the threats that they perceive coming from the Islamic Republic. Now, again, is that paranoia? I don't think so. I mean, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, these are all to different degrees, along with Islamic Jihad, creatures of Iran. Iran has funded and aided and trained and guided these groups for decades. Iran has more than hinted that they seek the destruction of Israel. So even though Israelis may fear a successful Iranian reprisal, and certainly we saw a version of that today with 9 people being killed in Beit Shemesh. I think as long as Iron Dome and the Arrow system and the other systems more or less work and continue to prove, while not invulnerable, very effective, there will be support for this, no matter what they think Netanyahu's ultimate goals might be, whether he might benefit politically or not. This is a question of Israel piggybacking on the very valid excuse that Iran gave the Americans by massacring, by most reports, tens of thousands of their own people in the protests last month. They gave the world a plausible argument for intervention based on a principle of responsibility to protect, where there is a point where sovereignty is cast aside in favor of the need to rescue people from a government that is not prepared to brook dissent.
The leader of the opposition in Israel, Yair Lapid, has essentially said that by cutting off the leadership within Iran, that will promote change from within. It will give the opportunity for people to rise up and take over their own country. His words, his interpretation. That is also a view that has been reiterated by Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump himself. If that doesn't happen,